It's Tuesday evening and it's 6 p.m. UK time. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program, and I'm Saad in southeast London, where the weather is right now overcast, but it's been very lovely earlier with sunshine and really warm for October. We don't expect it to be this. I think it might be more than 24 degrees or something today. So yes, with me as usual is Gregory. Gregory, how are you and how is the weather where you are? Can you hear me, Gregory?
Yes, the weather has been beautiful. A bit warmer than usual.
Right. I heard you, just the volume was slightly low. So if you can just increase the volume or become closer to the mic. So yeah, welcome to the show, Gregory. And also we'd like to check how has been our week. So in my case, I've been off work I took a week off and I'm still off work at the moment. I took off on Thursday, I was off, and I'm still off at the moment. So yes, I've been trying to, let's say, catch up on things at home and also help, uh, without getting too personal, on a close relative. So, doing a few chores, you can say. So it's different from work, from normal, regular work, but it's good to catch up with things. Gregory, how has been your week?
Busy as usual with work.
Same as usual.
Yes.
Okay. Does that mean busy?
Yeah, very busy.
Okay. All right. So, welcome listeners to the Spiritual Discussion Program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uppushing. And uh, we have a new topic each week for discussion. The topic tonight is sex and gender identity. Sex and gender identity. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Greg, if I can just ask you to be on mute while I'm speaking, just so there's no echo. Thank you. So, listeners, also, we've had some big news in the world. I'm sure people would be aware of it. We've heard of I know they're calling it a Israel-Gaza or Hamas war. I'm going to say it a little bit differently. I'm saying that we are seeing heavy fighting, unprecedented, they're saying, between Gaza and Israel. And Israel is now saying they're looking for revenge to wipe out Hamas out of the right of self-defense. As I said, it's being called one-sided, called a war, but it's totally one-sided. As we know, there's one side fully loaded with weapons compared to the other one. So, but that's what they want to call it. So, also just to give a bit of background, because we hear this type of news in a way regularly, but they seem to forget about history when it comes to these type of matters, because only the current thing seems to be important and the history seems to be forgotten. So there's a historic injustice for the Palestinians due to them being occupied for over half a century. But somehow, as I said, it's all forgotten when there's the latest short-term news, which seems to take important over the past. And it also seems that people in power around the world want to stand for their self-interest, i.e. personal interest, to stay in power. You can see the leaders speak with a straitjacket to focus on one agenda, to support their own side and deliberately not mention the suffering of the other side. It appears that they wish to ignore their neighbors.
Sorry, Mr. Faruqi.
Yeah, let me speak, please. I want to say it.
Let's not put too much on this because there is
Yeah,
I'm going to end it.
But let me continue, please, because I want to do that. And It's just because there's too much propaganda in the world and it needs to be, let's say, demolished. There's people speaking. I know it's not a political show, but this is what is happening in the world, and I don't want to ignore what is happening in the world. As I say, people are speaking one side, another side, and each side seems to think that they are right, and they forget that we are all fellow human beings. And that should be, as a spiritual show, we should focus on this type of things, and people should not be allowed to get away with it. I'm not willing to let that go. So, they are shouting their own noise and thinking they're a big name. So I don't want them to get away with their big name. So that's my question is there, Gregory, people, as I say, are ignoring their fellow human beings. One side, their side is the right one, the other side is the wrong one. So should we condemn or stay neutral, take a side or stay neutral? What good does it do? Is one really serious about justice and peace and freedom, or is it just about themselves? There is no clear resolution for permanent peace until they adopt the principle, which, Gregory, as you know, you say it all the time, all for one and one for all. So this is surely missing in this situation. So that is why I didn't want to stop about it. And not only that, there has been an earthquake in Afghanistan with over 2,000 people killed, and that has been subdued by this other news. So again, I don't want to forget these things. But of course, just to remind you listeners, the topic we're going to be discussing tonight, this was just an introduction. We're going to be discussing is sex and gender identity. So I would like to...
May I say something a little?
Okay, yes, please. You can say on that what I've just
said.
And
I said, like you rightly said, we have discussed some of these things before. The only comment here is winning a war may require loads of armament to suppress the other. Winning the peace requires one for all and all for one in accordance with the living creative laws. And it is winning the peace that counts, not winning the war.
Yes. Thank you for that, Gregory. Just again, please, your volume is a little bit low, at least from my side. I don't know if the people can hear loudly. Please ask listeners, just in case there's anything about the broadcast that is not, how can I say, working well, please send me a text or WhatsApp message. I'll give you the phone number in a moment. So yes, thank you again, Gregory, for what you said there. I want to now, as you know, the aim of this show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abraham. And so I want to say some words on what is the Grail Message. The Grail Message in the light of truth by Abraham is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. Sorry, Gregory, just if you can go on mute. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abdrushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we are discussing tonight is sex and gender identity. And if you have any questions or comments, please contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. So, thank you. Gregory, you know, I always like to look in the dictionary for the meaning of the words in the topic. And so tonight's topic is sex and gender identity. So the first word there is sex. And they're giving us, there are 2 meanings given to me in the dictionary. First one, it says, chiefly with reference to people, is sexual activity, specifically sexual intercourse. So, Gregory, can you just tell me if that's what we're going to be discussing in the discussion for tonight, for the meaning of the word sex?
Out of the question.
Right. Okay. Just going through the dictionary meaning so that people also know what we're not avoiding anything. And then the second meaning, either of the 2 main categories, that is male and female, into which humans and most other living things are divided on the basis of their reproductive functions. So is that the one then, Gregory, we're talking about? And
partially so.
Right. Partially, do you say? Partially.
Yes, partially so.
Partially so. So that means there's something which is not included, which we are going to want to discuss. What is the bit that is not included there?
Could we go through these things? Because when we come back to it,
I see.
because otherwise there will be a lot of distractions.
Right.
Trying to ensure that we are focused. And then before we bring in, please, let's go through it first.
Okay.
With all the...
Yes, not a problem. Yes, it's a big topic, so we go through it one by one step at a time. So the next word, I'll just go straight to that, is gender. And it says, again, either of the 2 sexes, male and female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological. This term is also used more broadly to denote a range of identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female. Um, so, Gregory, anything you want to say on that?
Actually, you'll find that there is a description of what the problem, of what the challenges are, but the real identification of gender has not been touched at all.
Right. So I just, before you talk about identification on, I wanted to, let me maybe go through all the meanings, but then we might miss something. That's what I'm a bit concerned. Okay. Um, so just to continue, there's a second meaning of gender as well. So mainly it says the two sexes, male and female. That's the first meaning. And it says there can be other uh, identities, range of identities, which are not necessarily biological. So that's okay. So then a further definition for gender, it is giving mass. Let me just read it before I. It sounds exactly the same if I'm honest, so I'll ignore that actually. Then I'll go to the word identity. And there are two meanings given there. The fact of being who or what a person or thing is. So saying that is a fact of being who or what a person or thing is. And another meaning for identity, it says a close similarity or affinity. So anything you want to say on that, Gregory?
Well, it comes nearer to what an identity is.
Right. Okay. Okay. And as you said, we're going to go deeper as we go along. So that's fine. Let me. Okay. What I will ask, Gregory, because I mean, I could say what is sex, but maybe before I say, we know that is the sex we're talking about, human beings first, and I was just going to ask really very simply, how many sexes are there? And I know it might sound a stupid question, but maybe just to clarify it now. So, Gregory, how many sexes are we saying in the human beings?
Are we referring to when you said in the human being? That,
yes.
You see, that is where one was going to. The human. And the human has a unique characteristic that is of spirit. And that being the case, there are only two ways, depending on areas of activities. In that case, the area of activities which are more intuitive and the area of activities which are not so intuitive. So there are only two.
There are only two. So yes, thank you for that, and for concerning human beings. And you did say how you can tell, or let's say some characteristic of male and the female. And I think, Gregory, you're pointing to the activity, if I'm right. You said about activity. So now, let's say what the human on Earth, how people are, because it's become a very hot topic for discussion, and there's, let's say, other varieties that people are talking about, and even how to define a male or female. They're seemingly having a, let's say, I don't know if it's confusion, but they're having a debate. Let's call it, they're having a debate about these things and questions. So can I ask Gregory, can we define a male through their body parts, i.e. the sexual organs, male human being? We're talking about human, just to be clear, listeners, the whole of our topic for tonight is about human beings. When we talk about sex and gender, of course, there are other creatures that are there as well, but really our focus is on the human being. So just so that we're clear, that's what we're going to be discussing. So Gregory, going back on what I'm saying about defining a male, let's say, or female, is it, you've talked about activity up to now, but what about on the earth with the body parts, which are the sexual organs? Is that, how does that, how can I say, fit in with what you have just talked about? Is that part of the definition of a male or female?
In the definition one mentioned, there is that characteristic which goes beyond the physical characterization. For whilst here on earth, you have that a female manifests in a body form which is easily recognizable. So also the male. It is not only on earth that you have the female and the male. Beyond the earth, there are men and women. They still have their characteristics which are distinct. However, these characteristics are such that it is for those of the same goal, which many human beings have, one for all and all for one. Why is this so? Because you have that in any area of activity, there is the delicate part, and then there is the denser part. The delicate part is handled by the woman, and the denser part is handled by the man. So it is the area of activities that have pressed out the forms which we recognize here on earth as male and female. However, it is very sad when everything is now tied to the reproductive organs. Those reproductive organs are only here on earth. But there is manhood in the beyond, there is womanhood in the beyond, and therefore, if you wish to do justice, all these ramifications have to be considered, not the final precipitation, which has brought so much problems in the sense that many are so hooked up to sexual intercourse and consider that to be paramount. And that is why, even in this discussion, one is making an effort to separate the areas of sensitive activities and the areas of not so sensitive activities. What you have here as male and female are only expressions of that which is higher.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for your answer there and the picture you're painting. The last word you used was expression. You know, And so, and you already talked earlier about activity. So, so the male and female are really are, we look at the word sex and then we think, oh, yes, I know that on the earth we would call it the sexual organ as the way to identify the male and the female, but actually it is the activity, and even this activity is an expression of the human, spirit acting in a way, one way, as you say, sensitive way, and a less sensitive way. So the less sensitive is male activity, and the sensitive one is the female activity. And the body form, as you say, I remember, Gregory, you said earlier, is corresponding to that type of activity.
Correct.
So that's, how can I say, the basic, fundamental picture that needs to be realized and understood, that this is what a human being, yes, we have male and female human beings, and obviously, as you already pointed out, the sexual intercourse can only happen on the earthly, because there's only one function of that, which is to continue the human generation on the earth. But that's not necessary in the beyond and the where the spirit originally comes. Those activities don't happen there, and so they don't need these organs, sexual organs that we, However, they still have a form, but this form is still corresponding to the activity. So this is a fundamental point, really, which I will say most of us have never really considered, uh, you know, because we seem to always see things from the earthly point of view, rather than, let's say, the more holistic creation point of view, which we are all part of. Not part only on the earth, we are also in this creation. So I think if we see this life in that broad way, then we are, can understand things in a better way. Now, so, okay, I'm going to come to this then, Gregory. Can, this sounds much, even I'm thinking it's a strange question. Can one choose one sex? Because when you're born, you're already in a particular, body. So, and you're wondering, oh, that has been set already. So, because it happens through the sexual intercourse on the earth, that's how a human being comes. So I want to ask you, Gregory, can the child, the baby that is born, is he or she involved in choosing their sex when they're coming to this earth, or is it already preset?
That's a very good question. Which question means there is the need to consider a holistic approach from the time in which that personality came into existence and gradually, subsequently, see what then happens. Before somebody incarnated on the earth and took up this form, what was he or what was she? Now the person has incarnated. Did the person just choose the body? Because the person did not create the body, but that person chose or influenced the formation of that body. Therefore, to have a clearer picture, there is a need to move back. As we all have been discussing in this forum, that motion is a law in creation. There's nothing that you do. There's no activity here, even in the beyond, wherever it is, that is not involved in motion. So motion is everywhere, ubiquitous. There is the power that is needed for motion. The source of all that power is a topic of discussion some other time. But now that one can easily establish for himself or herself that motion is a law in creation, then it's understandable that even at the beginning, there was incessant motion, and came to the conclusion that there are only two types of motion, just two types, or be two categories. That category in which the end of the motion returns back to the beginning of the motion, and the other category in which the end of the motion does not flow back to the beginning. With that being clear, there are many characteristics of this. In the first case, where the end flows back to the beginning, that is more or maybe characterized or categorized as that of reciprocal activity. That is very clear. One may also try to find out what lies behind it, in which that the end flows back to the beginning means there must have been an attraction. There must have been attraction from the beginning. And since it goes back to the beginning, it must be homogeneous. Therefore, from these observations of motion, we have first that of the attraction of homogeneous species, and secondly, that of reciprocal activity. The outworkings of these sometimes appear as one. The third, in which the end does not flow back to the beginning, the strongest impression it gives is that which is denser sinks, and that which is lighter rises. Again, the urge is there. That's already there is that perception of gravitation which has arisen out of density. These are the three laws which form the cornerstone of the living activities in creation, in nature. Now, with that as the framework, one can then see that in creation, this law in which the end flows back to the beginning, in which there are lighter parts and there are denser parts, that gives us a strong sense of splitting. So what we refer to as creation, our nature, are different splittings. Also in the human personality, there are splittings. That which is lighter is born by the female, and that which is denser is encapsulated in the male. However, working together, having the same goal, they are able to work hand in harmony to achieve the final goal of becoming conscious and subsequently self-conscious. That gives the basic picture. So at the beginning, when the human personality left its home, first as an unconscious germ, spirit germ, it was sexless. However, as it proceeds down, in order to experience, the urge awakened within it to determine which area of activity it would like to participate in. At the beginning, it was sexless. It had an identity, but it has not got a gender identity. It had an identity because it was a human spirit germ. But as these germs sank, and gradually the urge for consciousness, the urge for awareness awakened deep within them, they chose. They chose to be in the area of feminine activities, which are finer, or masculine activities. However, working harmoniously, they can achieve this goal of not only consciousness, but self-consciousness in their workings. And that explains it all. So, when that decision has been made, the structure of the female in the sensitive activities takes on a form. It is set. So also that of the male. It is set. For them to work consciously, full of awareness, in accordance with the creative, in accordance with the living creative laws, they needed to take these forms. So what it has been set, it cannot be reset unless, however, there is the need to go back as unconscious spirit gem. Then all that effort would have been in vain. That is not in accordance with the love of the Almighty, with the will of the Almighty that had permitted the human spirit to proceed from the states of unawareness, from the state of unconsciousness to the states of consciousness and subsequently self-conscious. Therefore, these category, these type, haven't been set, always needed to work together. And only here in the world of gross matter, for the sake of continuity and for order to be able to pass from one to the other, the strong impressions, which are the blessings that flow in creation, the female is in the position to sense this, to attract human personalities in accordance with homogeneity. Therefore, you find in nature, it is only the women that have been granted this ability and the form that has been pressed out. That's why we have that, we'll use that expression. This form has been pressed out intrinsically. And in that case, the reproductive organs then came into existence and they needed to use it. For the male, they did not need it. They do not need it. And therefore it is absent. But they can work together in harmony with the male or with the female. No marriage is ever required to fulfill that which leads to consciousness and self-consciousness. As long as these human personalities have the same goal, which goal is to cultivate the talents which have been sown within them, allow them to grow, to evolve and come to fruition, such that they can stand consciously in creation, working not only with the females, but with other beings that exist in creation to fulfill that which urge has been there. However, with the power which the human personality is able to use, it can have strong volitions, even in its experiencing. Those strong volitions, most of the time, only happen here on earth, where they want to try it out. They want to become females. Some will want to become males. Such strong volitions will not immediately change the form which they hold immediately. But if such volitions are so very strong, that helps in altering the forms which they may now have when they come again back to this earth, where that volition will be fulfilled. So you will have that deep within the person, that gender identity remains unique. But what he wears, which is the form, the gross material body, there is a distortion. More of this can be found in the work, in the light of truth, the Grail Message. There, every sentence, every word must be examined intuitively. Then, and only then, will clarity dawn on the one who does the personal, intuitive examination.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this detailed explanation and picture of how us human beings basically choose our sex from the beginning, you can say, as a human spirit, right down to the earth. Um, it's quite a process, but once you know the real meaning behind it, purpose and meaning behind it, then things will fall into place and make sense. So it is quite a process, and when you hear it first time, probably you might find a struggle to understand. But so you just have to, let's say, keep looking at it and trying to understand it, and the process, what it is. So and of course, the Grail message gives you that understanding. So I just want to say to the listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aprushin. And if you're interested to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is sex and gender identity. Sex and gender identity. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1. That's again the number 1, space, live stream. That's for the live show, which, as I've told you, is on Tuesdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. And after the show, the next day, you can listen to a recording of this show, again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, number 1, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is sex and gender identity. Of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, how can I say, the topic we're discussing tonight is, as I mentioned, is already very, very topical, but there's so much, how can I say, variety of pictures or conceptions that people have, which are not very clear. They're going on feeling and whatever else that is affecting people. And then there doesn't seem to be any under consensus in things, and people have opinions which can't be called fact. And they don't have an idea, is this something people think, or maybe somebody is, let's say some people, if you're not male or female, or you consider yourself some other, let's call it identity, then somehow, yes, you are human, but you're some strange type of person, or some people think this way, and then not normal, let's say, and then suddenly something has to be done about you by society who doesn't accept it, or at least in some cases. and because the world is becoming, let's say, more accepting or tolerating, or even they use the word inclusive. But tonight I do want to, go into these different matters so that these things are become clear. Um, but before I do that, Gregory, a listener has actually contacted me actually before the show because they knew about the topic, and they had some specific questions about uh, our topic for tonight, which is sex and gender identity. And the first question they asked me, put forward rather, is, can one identify with only one gender? So, yeah, Gregory, can you tell us something on that? Can one identify with only one gender?
Thanks for that question. Can one identify? Identity is unique. Therefore, that question's answer itself. As one had discussed earlier, you can identify with areas of activities that are finer, or you can identify with areas of activity that are much denser. You cannot now, in your identity has nothing to do as such with the physical body. Identity has everything to do with the inner core of man, which is spirit. And that is what many don't even acknowledge. Therein lies the problem. Identity has everything to do with the inner core of man. In this particular case, we have an identity as human beings, not stones, not plants, not books. That's why there's the discussion of human beings. So, that which is human is what we are referring to. We're not referring to plants and their sexual organs, or stones, because they don't have, or just elements like oxygen and hydrogen, because they don't have. Reproductive. So the word identity stamps it uniquely. And just as we had discussed, that within the laws, which we now know are based on motion, there is that in which the end flows back to the beginning. And there is in which the end does not flow back to the beginning. One can already start sensing that in that case, where the end flows back to the beginning, it's as if there is a pool. It's not so dense. That's why it's going back to the beginning. It is pulling. That already gives the impression that is the one that makes the decision. As things sink in creation. The other one in which the end does not flow back to the beginning, that gives you the strong impression of gravitation. Already, one can see densification coming in. But that which is not so dense and that which is dense, they work hand in hand. Because in creation, there are only splittings. Splittings in which one is positive, the other is negative. When you say positive and negative, that has nothing to do with the impressions which have been so materially disjoint and distorted. No. We have a swinging in which one is active. That is denser. Another swinging which is passive. That is the one that receives the strong impression and passes it on to the other one which is active. And they accomplish. One can give a very simple example, which every day is done. The area of computing in which you have softwares. You never hold the software in your hand, but you know it's there. And then you have the hardware, in which the software and the hardware work hand in hand in order to achieve a common goal. That is how it is. In creation, that which is passive, that means the woman who is able to perceive intuitively of the strong blessings and radiations that streams in creation, she does this in a passive way. That does not mean she is weak, but her area of activity is different. Whereas the man who receives these impressions being passed on is more like the general manager to manage the heavy duties. That doesn't mean he's strong. It only means his area of activities are different. But harmoniously, that which is passive and that which is active, when they work harmoniously, they form the cross of creation. The cross in which one radiation is passive, the other one is active. That is how it has always been. And that is what creation is. You find it in substantiality everywhere you go. So that human personalities now decide to ask themselves these questions, it becomes surprising. The identity is of spirit and is unique. Therefore, you can either choose to be active or to be passive.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. I just want to make sure that the question has been answered because I'll just say the question again, and then if you just say that's exactly what you wanted to say, because it says, can one identify with only one gender? And you talked about identity, so I just want to check about the gender part. So
yes.
Can one identify with only one gender?
Yes. You can identify with only one gender, that gender which is of the spirit. That is why
So
one
you're
says,
calling the gender spirit only, not male or female? Because the gender, what I'm saying, yeah, go on.
When it is said there's only, you can either be active or be passive, that makes it very clear. Maybe I don't understand. You want to
Okay,
be...
sorry. Yeah. Yeah, now I'm getting there. Yeah. So yes, just to be 100% clear, uh, so if, you can identify with only one gender. You said yes, and let's say that gender is, you say, active and passive. And the active, I want to connect it with male and female because it may not be 100% clear for others. So the active is for the male and expresses itself as a male, while the passive activity expresses itself as a female.
Yes,
So just for clarity for everybody.
yes,
And once you have chosen a particular either active, you can only choose one, isn't it? Active or passive. And if you choose to be active, you come turn into a male. And if you choose to be passive activity, you become a female. And I know we want to focus on the activity being active and passive rather than male and female, but it should be fully clear that that's what we mean. Now, so once you have chosen that activity, you cannot change to from active to passive or male to female and vice versa. That's what you're saying, Gregory, right?
precisely.
Okay, so that's
In the
very clear.
discussion,
So that is,
what,
let's say, sorry, go
no,
on.
sorry,
Yeah.
in the discussion, it was made clear that spiritually, that first decision, the urge to participate, once that urge dawns on the person, that personality identifies with either the male or the female. Because it is a spiritual decision made at that level of motion, which is so vibrant, the structure is set. It is that structure which the human personality has now chosen to use in becoming conscious and self-conscious within creation. When he set out, there was no, it was sexless. It had an identity, a human spirit gem. When he made that decision, or the urge done within it, it became a male or a female. In that instance, or gradually, the structure is set within it. So thereafter, it proceeds now to experience using the structure which it now has. That is why when it now comes closer to the earth, that strong impression presses things out such that it's able to swing harmoniously. This is what happens at the beginning.
Thank you for that clarification there, Gregory. My own personal add-on question on that, when we get to the Earth, or let's say in current times specifically, these things seems to be, as I said, there seems to be lack of clarity. People are claiming, oh, I'm in the wrong. They're basically thinking. Some people are feeling, oh, I'm in the wrong body, and you know, uh, and I'm just trying to think which question to go for, but yeah, let's go with that one first, Gregory. So there's some people who feel and they're in the wrong body and they don't have a sex change. This is the physical, of course, we're talking on Earth. So we have said that you can't change your identity. You are either activity or passive activity, and active is the male and the female is the passive. But once you get on this earth, people somehow, whatever level of consciousness, maybe this is the issue here, they're just thinking, hang on, I don't feel right in this body, and I need to now change this body. So what's going on there, Gregory? Somehow they're supposed to be male and make in a male body, male with a, you know, but on the earth, suddenly, you think you don't change your identity. You are meant to be what you are when you chose and made your first decision of being male, active or passive. And then when you arrive, and that was before in the spiritual, or let's say as you left your journey from the spirit down to the earth. And then when you get to the earth, somehow, some of us people, feeling, oh no, this is not the right body for me. I shouldn't be male. I'm a male. I've got a male body, but I should have a female body. I don't feel like a male. So what's going on there, Gregory? Because somehow they want to change.
First, strictly speaking, such questions maybe should be directed to those who all of a sudden feel they want a change. But the question which one must consider, how did they come to use this body? Which body had been prepared for them in accordance with their strongest volition? Now they have the opportunity to use that which they themselves had requested for. And therefore, when being granted, they now say, oh, this is not the right body for me. Of course, human personalities have free will. They have free will to proceed as they wish. Free will in their thoughts to think as they wish to think. Free will in their intuitions to proceed spiritually. Within that free will of the intuition, if subsequently that personality, which is a female, spiritually, has the strong emotion or has that strong volition to experience as a man, then that volition forms the environment upon which she will now have to incarnate. Not that whilst on it, it has to incarnate again, but having put something into motion, and motion being a law in creation, subsequently, that personality will have to enjoy that which its volition has put forward. And therefore, you find that that personality in another earth life is granted that possibility for it to incarnate. The experiences that it goes through now help to remold it, whether it wishes to go along now as a man and keep suffering, because it will have thorns turn intuitive perceptions. On the one hand, there is that structure which had been set originally deep within it, female. And intellectually, whilst on it, wanting to, participate in the male area of activity, vice versa. So you find there are some women, their structure is such that, to some extent, looks more like a male. This can be identified at the waist level. There are some others who are men, but when looked at carefully, one can see the features to some extent, sometimes not very clear at the waist level, that as if they harbor deep within them, in spirit, the female. These things exist because that is the decision that human personalities now make. They do not strive in purity to swing unconditionally within the laws of creation based on what they themselves have decided. So they want to be male, they want to be female, they want to be male, they want to be female. However, the time granted to the human personality to experience before returning home is not infinite. It's a finite period. And therefore, if he does not make up his mind on which way to follow, it may well happen that time runs out and the first decision having been set, the structure within it being female or male, and in its activities trying to counter that structure, it may turn out that it will subsequently destroy itself, and in that case is unable to go back home as a self-conscious human personality, either as male or as female, but now back home as an unconscious spirit seed germ. Then all the opportunities granted to it have been in vain.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this, again, detailed answer to this question. There's more to talk about. It's really a massive topic, really, especially with things that are happening on the earth. So, but before I do that, I just want to remind the listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesdays. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uprushing. And if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is sex and gender identity. sex and gender identity. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is sex and gender identity. And you can listen to the recording the next day. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.fm/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, this listener who put forward some questions, he had 3 questions. And the second question he has asked is, which is to do with sexual intercourse, but I think it's all right. Does sexual satisfaction implies only on the opposite sex? So that's, yeah. Does sexual satisfaction imply only, normally you say with, but on the opposite sex? That's what he's put.
That question is not clear. What do you mean by opposite sex? There are two personalities involved here. So is it involved only on the opposite sex? Maybe that's not clear to me.
Well, normally when somebody says opposite, it means male and female. So that's one is male, the opposite is female. But maybe that word opposite is not a very appropriate word.
Well, one will say those who in the activities are involved in the active and in the passive. That is in itself a fact. However, you do find there are some who in a particular incarnation or in their present incarnation are striving, though they are females, they wish to be males, and therefore they engage in such dense positive area of activity. And you do have others who are females who are not so very inclined but are tending towards it. So in homogeneity, you find sometimes they come together. Strictly speaking, these are all distortions. These are distortions because these are only intellectually willed. Many want to experiment. Of course, the free will is there to experiment. However, when they tie things up to sexual intercourse, these sexual instruments which have been granted man, strictly speaking, enables continuity. You ask yourself, when the man goes with the man, where is the womb for continuity? When the woman goes with the woman, have we seen an ovary fertilizing an ovary? Or a sperm fertilizing a sperm? We must face the facts, not the fiction. And therefore, it is safe and proper to conclude that with these, there is no continuity. It is for something else which is personal to them. There is no continuity. And without continuity, how can other souls then incarnate? So it becomes very clear that which is now classified as personal enjoyment has been grossly distorted. And you now have a scenario where all that many desire is only so-called sexual intercourse. Where is the probity? Where are all the nobilities which one is to consider for continuity? All these things are easily forgotten.
Thanks very much again, Gregory, for this answer. Now, let me just finish it with the last question from the listener. Can several, again, it's sexual intercourse again, this one actually, can several sexual encounters be classified as impure? Can several sexual encounters be classified as impure? And again, you might say, Gregory, he's not very clear. The question is not very clear. And I don't know if, well, maybe you need to look at both both possible meanings. So this is my two possible meanings from this question. Is it sexual encounter with the one person, many of them? Is that impure? That's question number one of that. And the second one could be sexual encounters with different people. Is that impure? So if you take it, both those questions, Gregory.
Whatever the question is, what is the motive behind these encounters? If the motive resonates in accordance with the creative wills of creation, if this motive resonates in accordance with the living laws of creation, such that this motive helps to elevate those persons involved, then it is pure. Else it is impure.
Thank you so much for that, Gregory. Hopefully those questions have been answered, listener. And I hope you're listening as well, because you sent it before the show. So thank you for that. Now, Gregory, I just want to continue, especially with how we have these things on the earth now, with so-called different gender identities. We said there were only two, and already, which is male and female, or active and passive. And then here on the earth, we have, let's say, a community of people who say we are LGBTQ+. So there's many variety of them. And I want to sort of, I don't know if we can go through all of them, but just we try to understand what's going on here in these people's identity, because these people that's what they feel, that's what they are feeling. And is it a delusion? Is it a reality, what they're feeling? That's what we want to sort of understand. Now, there are people, Gregory, they call it transgender. Okay, so actually, I think we looked at that already in a way. Transgender, I will just tell you the meaning in the dictionary. It says denoting or relating to a person whose sense of personal identity and gender does not correspond with their birth sex. So that was exactly what I was saying about the body. The person feels that they're not in the right body. So if they're born as a male, but they feel they should have they're born as a male body, but they feel they should have a female body. So anyway, we've done that one. Okay, I'll do it another question there, Gregory. So far, what you've said, Gregory, that it is the active and the passive activities that are supposed to work together in harmony. I'm just thinking maybe you've answered this also, but I will just say it anyway. But then there's some people who are having, you could say, homosexual or lesbian or gay. That's the other word they use. So it's the same sex having attraction to the same sex. And this is on Earth. I just want to have clarity on this. So, Gregory, is that something, how can I say, natural or unnatural, or how can we explain that, basically, when people are somehow being attracted by the same sex, yes.
Whatever resonates with the laws of nature is natural. Else it is unnatural. With that which is natural ensures continuity. It should be repeated. That which is natural ensures continuity. Then ask yourself the facts. The woman with the woman, do they ensure continuity? The man with the man, do they ensure continuity? That question, or those questions, are left to them. Most of the time, it's just a way of life that a personality has chosen. Either there is continuity or there is discontinuity. You can't have both. So when people now put themselves up and say, it is one wishes to have an intercourse with the man as a man, or with the woman as a woman, the only characteristics or classification or categorization of these, they are drones. Drones that do not ensure continuity. At best, they are like stormtroopers. They may be a strong activity they may get into, but before long, because there's no continuity, they die out. So, is the question which people must ask themselves and find an answer. How does your activity as a man or as a woman enables continuity? The question and the answer is theirs.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Just trying to see if this is relevant to our discussion at all. Yeah, I think we won't. Yeah, I will think of something else here. So, Gregory, some people, because you have said clearly the feature of making understanding about it, or knowing what to do, with a relationship or whatever the people are trying to do, will it lead to continuity? So, and then let's say some people are of, let's say, particular belief or religion, and they say, oh no, this gay or lesbian is not, um, is something they have gone astray somehow, and they need to be treated or converted back to heterosexual, and that applies whatever practice they want to try. So it can be just prayer, it can be, I don't know, some chemical treatment. I know I'm laughing a bit, but and it sounds funny, but people have tried to do these type of things, and I'm sure it was in a genuine uh, belief they're going to help somebody. So, Gregory, when I mean, should people interfere there, Gregory? When some people want to wish to go a particular way in this, their let me call it a sexual orientation, and then some groups around them say, no, we want to bring you back to something else. Uh, should there be any such? Should people be interfering in people's decisions and choices like this? It's like a personal matter.
The question one must ask, is there any human being that has not been granted free will to make decisions? If that is the case, and whoever the person is, acknowledge that he himself or herself has a free will to decide how he or she needs to proceed, so is another person. That is what the free will is for. It is no use trying to say force another when that person has no, interest or to that particular direction. The human personality must be free in all that he or she needs to do, must be free intuitively, must be free in his thoughts, must be free in his deeds to make a choice. To make a choice to be, or to make a choice not to be. That is an intrinsic. For if you must choose, then it is imperative that you will choose that which resonates with you. Or will you choose that which does not resonate with you and will wipe you out in a second? The decision to be or not to be is with the individual. What you see are manifestations, how each of us is striving to be. All the pressures which pressure have been pressed out are only manifestations of our inner thoughts, our inner emotions, trying to see how we can balance things, whether it be in war or peace, whatever it is, and that's why it is stressed. One for all and all for one. Strictly speaking, you never walk alone. For there are many other human personalities, seen or unseen, human thoughts that flow around, that have an impact. But you, the personality, needs to choose. Some choose through experience, some choose out of just arbitrary activities. But that ability to choose always lie with the individual. That is what guides the individual here on earth or hereafter when the physical body has been discarded.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this answer. Another aspect, Gregory, I would like to look at is because obviously a human being has free will, and they can do, they have that choice to, make their decision and, take the actions accordingly. And then, and just in the last question, when I mentioned about, people being forced to take conversion therapy or whatever it is, which of course is not right, because it has to be a free choice, not somebody forcing you. So that's clear. But what we are finding now, Gregory, there are, let's say, many cases where there's an interaction of the, let's say, different groups of people. And let me give some example. I'll pick this one first, and then we can have a little bit different example. So in sport, for example, we have women's sport and men's sport. And then we are finding that some people who have changed, it's called transgender, they've changed their sex from their birth. And now so for example, if I say somebody was born a man, and now it changed to be a man through sex change or whatever operation they do to become a woman, and now he wants to take part in the women's sports activity, and then and the other women competitors in the sport are saying, wait a minute, men, that's the reason we have men and women's sport, and now somebody who was formerly man is now woman and going to compete with us women and will have an advantage over us, and we will not be able to win at all, or no chance. So I know it might be this, in quotes, slightly trivial example, but I'm talking about, let's see, human rights, you can say, over the free will, having your free will, so that you're not discriminated, that, oh, I want to do take part in a sport, and then somebody else saying, no, you're not one of us, you are somebody else. So what can we, in this type of situation, Gregory, and I know I'm giving it slightly not the most serious example, let's say, but what can be done with this type of situations, with respect of free will, because we need to respect the free will.
Just as whoever calls himself or herself transgender has a free will, so are others. So as she or he is free to, in quotes, change their body parts or reconstruct their body parts because that's what they wish, so are also others free to decide not to interact with that person. This is what the free will is for, because as he or she has free will, others have free will. One thing becomes clear. Each personality must proceed in such a way so as not to incur any bonds that may hold he or she down in striving to fulfill its desires. It becomes very clear that, okay, in one case, oh, I want to make a change to become a female or a male. Fair enough. One is free. But deep within them, they remain what they have always been. The free will of man is not annulled. It is man, through his or her activities, that burden himself with so many things in trying to be like others, instead of trying to improve itself to become nobler. You may ask, what should we do? Just as that person has his or her rights, so do we have our own rights. Each may proceed along his own way so as not to disturb the other.
Thank you for that answer there, Gregory. And I just want to bring in like 2-3 other sort of examples very similar to this, and just to look at it as well. So for the same again, like somebody has, like a transgender has changed their original birth sex to whatever they are now, and again they're involved. Either they could be going to let's say someplace public. Let's talk about institutions which are like shared, and run by government. So there could be some place like a hospital where they're saying, oh, this transgender person is, maybe if I make a clearer picture, it'll make more sense. So somebody who was before a male, and now he's become a woman through the through this sex change, and now he's admitted to hospital, and he's put in, it's a she now, but they formerly male, and now they put in a female ward, and then other similarly, the women in that ward will might think that no, we don't want to be like with this person. And just to give a couple more similar, just to put it all together, so like the toilets, people saying no, they need to have, this person must have his own toilet, not to be shared with male or female toilet. And even in prisons, because these things have come in the news, and I'm just sharing that, they're saying no, this person again need to be in some other place. They need to be in a prison, but not mixing with the thing, because the other people were originally what they are, and they're still what they are now, while this person has changed. So in this type of situation, what I'm saying, Gregory, government or some institution is taking in running this premises, properties, and they have to deal with this situation, and they have to take care of the people that are in these institutions that they're supposed to take care. And now they have to make some policy or decision. And so if, like I say, if everybody put their opinion, there would be maybe a conflict and said, no, I don't want to be with this person. And then that person said, no, I should be okay there. So how can we, let's, I don't know if the word is to satisfy everybody, but how can we make, I will just say the word right decision. It may not be the best way to put it, but a decision that is satisfactory. I don't know how to put it.
Well, you said, how can we? That means the way forward. On the one hand, there are those who are females. There are those who are males and they remain so. There are those who have, in quotes, changed their, will I say, sex or identity. If the government has the resources for each group that comes forward, maybe, and they say trans or not trans or whatever, because there are so many groups one cannot. If the government has resources, then it could make provision for all of this, whether they be 1 or 100. Else, they could go back to the original. That means if government has resources. But what is discussed here is the activities of the human spirit, how it manifests here on earth. So sometimes it becomes very challenging to take into account all the distortions which have been brought in. And some of these distortions turn out to be aberrations, which aberrations could easily be avoided if the human personality had focused on that which is beneficial for it.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for bringing that point up, because I mean, we are thinking, as I say, mostly from the earthly point of view, and then there is the spiritual viewpoint, which is the superior point of view, which has to take precedence or lead, and the earthly has to follow that. And so we may be seeing things from the earthly side, but it needs to be taken into the right context of the spiritual side, you can say, and then people can align. So, but as we've already said, Gregory, there is the free will, so people have to, you have to live in the real world. You can't. If everybody, let's say, knows the laws of creation and everything, then of course it's a different matter. But there's all variety of people, and so we have to, and we cannot say, oh no, we're not going to meet this person. It's not like they're human just like you, so you can't just ignore someone. But yes, thank you for that. Now, Gregory, we've been talking about the male being the active activity, or pursuing active activity, and the female pursuing the passive activity. So again, I want to look at on the earth. So let's say in the olden times, maybe more, a woman would be, have certain, they would expect some expectations that this is the type of work a woman would do, and there's a expectation that a man would do that type, another type of work, different type of work. But in the world of today, Gregory, you see that the men and women basically can do anything. There's no restriction, let's say. Now, so how is that like how can I say, a good development, or is that like, so is that aligned with the laws of nature, that man and women can do any activity, or on this earth, or is it really something meant for the man and other activities are only for the woman?
In the discussion, the mention is made of that of positive, heavy activities. It is the man that is most suited for it, whereas that of passive activities, it is the woman who is suited for it. And there was an example which one gave. Nowadays, what you see in the area of so-called computing is the hardware. You see it physically, but you do not see the software. That does not mean the software is not there or it has not been written. The same thing with your phone. You see the earpiece, you see the handset. The software that runs this handset, in which waves can be transmitted from one handset to the other, those waves you cannot see or perceive with your physical senses, but they are there. That shows an example. That which is higher works with that which is lower in harmony in order to achieve the goal. It's the same thing everywhere. So the question many may ask, how do we decide on that which is of finer activity from that which is of heavier activity? A very nice question, and the answer is simple. Use your intuition to perceive again and again and again. Before long, you yourself will be clarified. Why is that so? For someone who wishes to learn a language, you don't all of a sudden start speaking a language. For someone who wants to play music, you don't all of a sudden start playing music. You play the tune, little tunes, humble tunes, step by step, until deep within you it is set. Then you are free to compose, to express yourself. Before then, no, you haven't arrived. So it is also with one's intuition. Only through use, not in big things, but in little things. In little things which many may dismiss. Therein will be confirmation that indeed the intuition, which may not sound logical in the first instance, may turn out to be the first impression which turns out to be right.
Thank you for that answer there, Gregory. I've got one last question. You know, the Almighty God, especially, well, there has been some recent discussion that Christians have been saying, or when they pray, this is Almighty Father, you know, giving a clue that, or hint or indication that God is male. And then others are saying, no, it needs to be neutral. I don't know if this is called political correctness or not, but I want to ignore that point of only political. I just want to look at it in the way of assessing things correctly. And because sometimes people use terms, I've forgotten exactly the word now, figuratively, right? So, and they don't mean literally what they say. So it's just a picture that you're meant to get. So can I just ask, Gregory, is God male or female or both? How can we understand that?
The Almighty, the radiations that stream from the source, that radiation is neutral. Divinity existed before creation. The radiations which naturally streams out of the Almighty forms the divine realm. How the human personality, which is coming to awareness, which is striving for consciousness, which is striving for self-consciousness, how he or she is able to perceive of this power is his or her own alone. Whether they follow the example that Christ gave when he said, Our Father, or they wish to choose theirs, the free will is there. Those who speak to say, oh, they wish to be politically correct, they should know politics only came into existence because many are unsure of what the living creative laws of nature are. For if they knew and they strive after that, then many of the conflicts which you now have today will vanish. Then it will go back to the one for all and all for one. And immediately there will be improvement in all areas of activities. So, to debate what nature they will call the Almighty is beyond them, for they know not what that power is. One may refer many of them back to the work in the light of truth, the Grail Message of vibration, and dig themselves deep into it. Before too long, the facts and the power will become clarified within them.
Thank you very much for this answer, Gregory, and for your answers during this show. We've come to the end of the show now, listeners. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion on sex and gender identity. And as usual, I like to read from the front of the Grail Message called For Your Guidance. The bandage falls and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you are truly alive. in the wonderful creation of your God. Abdrushin. Dear listeners, if you want to get more information on the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll just spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye? You're on
Wishing
mute,
them
Gregory.
a beautiful week.
You wish them a beautiful week, and the same from me, listeners. We'll be. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time, with another topic.